In this edition of Teleios verse by verse, we discuss Ephesians 3:15. Paul begins his prayer with some important characteristics. He addresses the prayer to God. In adherence of biblical principles, believers pray to God the Father, not to Christ, the Spirit, or to the saints. Paul stated in verse 14, he prays to the Ephesians will not be anxious over his suffering for their sake, and to encourage them to maintain their daily faith. This is Paul's second prayer in his letter to the Ephesians. Both are example prayers for what God wants believers to attain in our lives of faith. These prayers provide a good example how to pray for ourselves and other believers. They are generic in the sense that they contain what God wants for believers, no matter the situation being faced. If a believer needs work, for example, 1 Peter 5:17 states to cast all our cares upon God. However, in trusting Him to provide work, God also wants believers to attain the other aspects mentioned in Paul's second model prayers. Therefore, he makes specific requests to God while trusting Him to answer in parallel with attaining knowledge and wisdom of God, increased hope, power, maturity, and being rooted in God's love. Paul recognizes that the whole family of God in earth and heaven are named for him. Family. This is not the typical word for family. Instead, it refers to the oneness of God's family, both Jews and Gentiles, both Old Testament and New Testament believers. In other words, all His people everywhere throughout all times. The term name indicates that Christians represent God and are under His authority. Thanks for joining us. Check out our social media.